welcome to my channel. Today's video is going to be all about the Subculture palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This palette has created such a stir online. I've seen so many videos on it, so many negative comments on it, and it's just very confusing because there are a lot of mixed reviews on it. But the thing that I've been seeing is that people are saying that there's a lot of kickback and that they are basically just not that blendable, the shadows. And Anastasia Beverly Hills markets this as the sister palette to the Modern Renaissance palette, which is an amazing palette. Modern Renaissance has done amazing. It is probably one of the most popular palettes and everybody seems to just love it. Now with this palette, everybody had really high expectations. Because Subculture is the sister palette to Modern Renaissance, of course, there were high expectations. I have high expectations for it. The shades in this palette, I think, are really unique. The colors in this palette are very different than Modern Renaissance. Modern Renaissance is very warm toned, and this is definitely more on the cool tone side, but the shades are pretty unique. You have the mustard yellow, you have the green. So basically what this video is going to be will be a first impressions. I'll be creating my first ever look with it. I'm not going to be doing any swatches. I don't usually really do any swatches in my reviews. I just find that I like to jump into the palette or whatever product I'm using and really see how it's performing. So I will be going in depth into how it's performing, how the shadows are working, and any tips and tricks that I learn along the way. I do mention this later in the video, but this video is a part 1 to a 3-part series. I'm basically going to be creating 2 other looks using this palette. This palette is very versatile, and I do know that some of the shades might work differently than others, so I want to see the full spectrum of the palette. Before I get into my first impressions on the Subculture palette, don't forget to subscribe down below and also to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Alexi Artistry. So I haven't even opened it yet. I haven't taken it out of the packaging, so I'm going to do that now. I have already primed my eyes as I usually would. I went with my Smashbox 24-hour photo finish primer, put a little bit of the Tarte Shape Tape on top to conceal any veins, and then set it with a white matte eyeshadow. So if using this palette for the first time goes well, I'm planning on doing a part 2 and a part 3. So basically I'll be doing 3 looks using this palette on my channel. That is if I do like the shadows and they work out for me. I'm thinking for this look that the upper crease is going to have the mustard yellow with possibly this red shade over here, and then the bottom lash line is going to have maybe Destiny or Untamed, so any of the green shades, with a little bit of edge, which is the mustard yellow. But we'll kind of play around and see where it goes. And I do know with these shadows that a lot of people were complaining that there was a lot of kickback. So I'm just going to take my usual Morphe M441 blending brush, and I'm going to dip into the shade Dawn. I know you're supposed to tap lightly, so I'm just going to tap lightly. Okay, so yeah, obviously that was a little bit more kickback than usual. It's clear that it's powdery, but I'm not going to press any harder. I'm just going to kind of pick up the product that is moved around in the pan. When I look at my brush, it seems that not a lot of product has basically gone on the brush. Basically, it's just been sitting in the palette. And the more I really lightly tap on it, the more powder it just kicks up. So I'm going to take whatever is left on this brush. I think with the formula of these, I think it would be better to tap the color on lightly and then blend. I think that a dense brush might work better. So I'm going to pick up my NYX number 16 blending brush, and I'm going to very lightly tap into Dawn. And then I'm going to tap off the excess. Start by tapping. And I'm starting to tap in the outer corner because that's where I want the most pigment. And then I'll bring it into the crease. Okay, so I blended the shade Dawn out. And it's not, I can't say that it's a bad shadow because it isn't. But the word to use, I think, is that it's just a different formulation. Like, it's really just different than Modern Renaissance, and I think that's really throwing people off because, you know, when it's said to be sister palette, people are going to think it's going to be the same or similar formulation, but it's different and it's not bad. It just kind of takes getting used to and kind of figuring out how to use it, which that's fine. It's makeup, we can do that, it's not that big of a deal. The next shade I'm going to put through my crease is the shade Edge, which is the mustard yellow shade. I'm going to try again with my Morphe M441 and see if you guys can see. Tapping into it really lightly. This one doesn't have as much. It has kickback, but not as much. Dawn had like a lot. Let me see if I can zoom this in. If you can see like the indents already. Honestly, because there's so much talk about this palette, I'm paying so much more attention to like the littlest things, like the imprint of my bristles in the shadow, but I guess it's a little bit more than other shadows, but I think I have seen this before, but definitely there is more kickback. That's what I have to say. So I'm actually going to put this in the exact same spot as Dawn. Tapping it in the outer corner. So I really love the color of Edge. I didn't find that it was too hard to blend out. There wasn't anything that crazy going on. I think if you put too much down in one spot and you don't evenly do it on the other eye, like you place it a little farther over, it doesn't blend out as seamlessly as other shadows I've used, but I think that's because maybe I just put a little bit too much down. I also find that rather than packing it on with a little bit of force, if I pat it on, like very lightly touching my skin, it blends out a lot easier. So there is that, but so far I'm still happy with what's going on. So the next shade I'm going into will be All Star, which is this maroon red shade right over here. And I'm going in with my MAC 217 brush. So this shadow is going to go lower down in the crease. I want to make a gradient from this more red shade to the mustard yellow shade. Let's see how much fallout. There's some, but nothing like Dawn. Like nothing's been as bad as Dawn. Edge, as I'm looking at it, did get a little bit messy, but like I feel like my Modern Renaissance gets pretty messy too, so this isn't anything that crazy or out of the ordinary for me. So I'm going to place this in the crease by patting. So after using All Star, I don't know. No, I'm kind of disappointed. It wasn't the most blendable. I'm just trying to think about like what it wasn't doing correctly, but yeah, it's obviously really pigmented, but it wasn't overly blendable. It looks like a little messy, and it also, I guess, just layering with the Edge shade, which is the mustard yellow, it comes off brown, but even where I didn't really get Edge, it's still coming off brown on my lid. So I don't know. I'm not hating it, but I'm also not like absolutely loving it, and I feel like this outer corner looks messy. Sometimes looks can look a little messy until you clean it all up and you clean with concealer and you do your full face. So I feel like sometimes looks get into that rut and then you can kind of get past it. So what I actually want to do next is just cut this inner portion of my lid. I know I always do this and my Instagram is full of these looks, but this is not going to be as like big of a cut. It's just going to be right on this mobile lid right here. This is just to brighten that inner corner a little bit. I'm using my Tarte Shape Tape. Now that I've cut that, I just want to make sure that this edge is blended in a little bit more. So I'm going to take All Star once again, which is the more magenta red shade. So now that I'm looking at it closer up, on top of the concealer where I cut it, it is coming off more plum. So I definitely see the red undertone, but it's not as red as I thought it would be. So halfway, midpoint kind of thoughts is that I do like the palette, but I wouldn't call it difficult, but it is a more tedious palette to work with. You have to kind of figure out what brushes to use. You have to be a little bit on the lighter side with your pressure. But I think possibly the more I play with it, which is why I wanted to do a few videos, like 3 looks on my channel, is that the more you play with it, the more kind of kinks you figure out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop now, go off camera, finish off my face, and then I'm going to come back and then finish off the bottom lash line, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. So I finished off my base, and I actually went in with some black wing liner. I used the Kat Von D Tattoo Liner in Trooper, and now I'm going to tight line my top waterline. And then for the bottom waterline, I'm going to go in with a MAC liner, or eyeliner actually. It's an eye kohl called Costa Riche. So for the bottom lash line, I'm going to go in with the shade Untamed. It is one of the 3 more green shades. This one doesn't have as much kickback as the others, so that's good. I'm actually going to put a little bit of no color powder underneath my eyes. This is just to catch any fallout. Now with a Morphe M506, I'm going to go back in with Edge and now blend out Untamed with Edge so that it ties in with the top blend. Those 2 colors actually blended out really nicely. So for my inner corner highlight, I'm going to go into the shade Electric. Now Electric, I think I'm going to need a more dense brush. When I swatch it on my finger, it's more of like, I think a slight duochrome kind of effect, but I think it would be better with a more dense brush, and I will spray it with Fix Plus because I know it will intensify it. Electric is a really pretty shade, and it's pulling off really well with this color combo. I do think that all of these shades cohesively go really well together. Just going to wipe away baking. I'm just going to hop off camera to put on lashes, and then I'll be right back to tell you my final thoughts. Alright, so I just put some Huda Beauty, I think these are Scarlet lashes on, and then I used the ABH lip palette, and I mixed the blue and the yellow shade to create this green, and I tried to match it to the green on the bottom lash line. I think I did a pretty good job. So I definitely am going to continue to do 2 more looks on my channel using this palette, because the more that I played with it, the more I learned how to use it. I definitely can understand how this palette could get a negative reaction, because it is very different formulation-wise than the Modern Renaissance palette. So because it is said to be a sister palette, people are getting a little bit rattled. And I think that personally for me, the more I'm playing with it and the more I will get to play with it, the easier it will be for me to use. In terms of kickback, this palette does have kickback. My Modern Renaissance palette has a lot of kickback too, like it's really messy. Let me grab it. I mean, granted I've had this for a year, but yeah, like this palette does have a lot of kickback. I do have to say that some shades in Subculture are worse than Modern Renaissance, like Dawn was pretty bad. I can't say the other shades because I haven't tried them yet, but in my future video, which will be up this week, I'm hoping to do the rest of the videos within this week. So stay tuned if you are interested in seeing how my opinion is going to change, if it's going to stay the same in future videos. I do just want to add in, for the technique wise, I think taking a light little dab into the product, tapping off the excess, and lightly patting on your lid in the region that you want the pigment to be. You might want to start in the outer corners if that's where you want the most pigment, and then lightly dab it into the crease and then start blending. And I also found that more dense brushes worked best. So that's all for now. I definitely will get to working on doing the 2 other looks as soon as possible and get them up. Before I leave, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like this video, and also don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Alexi Artistry. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Yesterday in the mail I received my first ever order from Glossier, so I thought I would do a first impressions video.